and from very high sources, very qualified sources, very responsible sources. I'm going to tell you the real deal. Iran launched a mothership probably about a month ago that contains these drones. That mothership is off, I'm going to tell you the deal. It's off the east coast of the United States of America. They've launched drones, is everything that we can see or hear. And again, these are from high sources. I don't say this lightly. Now, you know, we know there was a probability it could have been our own government. We know it's not our own government because they would have let us know. It could have been some really glorified hobbyist or hobbyists that were doing something unbelievable. They don't have the technology. But let's pretend that's possible. The third possibility was somebody, an adversarial country, doing this. Know that Iran made a deal with China to purchase drones, motherships, and technology in order to go forward. The sources I have are good. They can't reveal who they are because they are speaking to me in confidentiality. These drones should be shot down. Whether it was some crazy hobbyist that we can't imagine, or whether it is Iran, and I think it very possibly could be, they should be shot down. We are not getting the full deal, and the military is on alert with this.
Look, you've given us some pretty dire information just here, and I want to make sure that our viewers are digesting this. Iran has the capability to pull up along our eastern seaboard and launch drones the size of an SUV into the skies of several states, particularly New Jersey, where we know the incoming president has a large home, also in the same county or nearby where some of these drones in New Jersey have been seen. That capability exists. It's possible some of those drones are here. So I have two questions. How are they fueling them? They have to land somewhere. Drones don't fly forever. Why don't they close down the airspace? Yes, it's inconvenient. Yes, it's the holidays. Shut it down. But if you start shooting things and you don't know how they're fueled, that's going to be mass explosions. This isn't like one spy balloon. Congressman, this is serious.
We've got to bring them down, and we've got to find a way to bring them down. I don't know exactly where they're landing. Obviously, I have some information, and again, this isn't just Jeff Van Drew. Oh, let's get on Harris Faulkner's show and say something outrageous. I'm telling you the straight deal from very high positioned individuals who are telling me this. And the bottom line is they're launching them. They are across the country. We don't even have anything like this.
No.
Our government and also certainly our hobbyists don't. So think about it. It's not only do I have the information, but it's also common sense. We've got to get them down. We've got to determine how they function, what they do, make sure that we can get them, and you're right, in a safe way. When I say shoot them down, get them down any way that you can, but right now they're probably extracting information. This is a clear and present danger to the United States and to our president-elect, and it's a serious business.
Well, and if one of them happens to fall and they're fueled, that explosion could kill people.
Jen.
Sabrina, can you tell me what the Pentagon is doing to address this issue of drone sightings over New Jersey? It's near sensitive installations. The FBI is involved. What is the Pentagon doing?
Sure. So at this time, aware of those drone sightings that have been reported, at this time we have no evidence that these activities are coming from a foreign entity or the work of an adversary. We're going to continue to monitor what is happening, but at no point were our installations threatened when this activity was occurring.
Can you rule out that these are American drones or U.S. military drones?
These are not U.S. military drones. Again, this is being investigated by local law enforcement. What our initial assessment here is that these are not drones or activities coming from a foreign entity or adversary.
Representative Jeff Van Drew, who is a Republican from New Jersey, was just on the air saying that Iran launched a mothership probably about a month ago that contains these drones, and that mothership is off the coast of the east coast of the United States. Is there any truth to that?
There is not any truth to that. There is no Iranian ship off the coast of the United States, and there's no so-called mothership launching drones towards the United States.
You think it's going to move Ethereum to new highs?
I do. I mean, Bitcoin is truly the star of the show. Bitcoin is like Mick Jagger, and Ethereum is like Keith Richards. So I do think we're going to see a move in Ethereum, because remember, Stuart, when I first started recommending Bitcoin on the show in 2019, I said that when the institutions embrace it, the floodgates would be opened. Now, in July, we had 8 Ethereum spot ETFs approved. Now, when you look at that, that means that $40 trillion that are held in retirement accounts that couldn't buy Ethereum or Bitcoin, for that matter, now have 8 options to buy spot Ethereum. So it is not the store of value necessarily that Bitcoin is. They call Bitcoin digital gold. They're calling Ethereum digital silver, and I think it's going to coattail Bitcoin, and I think we're going to see a double here this year.
Double
in 2025.
So at the moment, Ethereum is the 26th most valuable asset.
Yeah, and even if you look at the inflows into ETFs last week, there was $850 million came into the Ethereum ETFs. Bitcoin's getting all the attention, but Ethereum is in the backdraft, and we will see a move up from here.
I think there's a lot more still to come. I mean, I've actually been running the digital asset business at Goldman for 5 years nearly now. And so we've seen, this is almost like the second cycle. And the first kind of, I would say, kind of real bull run that I was involved in was very much kind of retail driven. And what we've seen kind of over the kind of following 2 or 3 years is actually a lot more regulatory clarity across the globe. And as a kind of byproduct of that, it's given confidence to the institutions to kind of invest and start to build out, their kind of digital asset.
What kind of regulatory clarity are you talking about? Because a lot of people still think, well, once we finally have this in the U.S., I mean, obviously it hasn't kept us from Bitcoin 100K, a lot of institutions, but for instance, could we see truly a lot of major multinationals putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet, that kind of thing?
I think it's conceivable, yes. And I think as we've started to see, over the last year and a half, a lot more clarity, probably outside of the US. I think there's obviously been a big spike in the valuations across the whole crypto suite, as we've seen since the US presidential elections. That obviously is driven by what we expect will be probably a more favorable regulatory backdrop, and that gives confidence to kind of the institutions more broadly.
What was your aha moment was it for Bitcoin specifically or crypto as an asset class where you felt like, hey, there's something here that's really going to create value? Because there are still a lot of people arguing that the U.S. should not enshrine this in any way, that it's a waste of capital, counterproductive, harmful even.
Yeah, I think as a firm, we're obviously driven by client demand. And if you look at kind of what we're able to do today, we're very active kind of in the cash-settled derivatives options, ETFs. And that's where we've seen, clients, particularly from an institutional slant, become more active. Oh. And so for us, I think that has been, I think the realization beginning of the year with the ETF approvals, that to me was the real catalyst. And then if you've seen the performance over the last kind of 9 to 10 months has been phenomenal. I mean, you're over 100 billion now in terms of outstanding Bitcoin ETFs. Wow. ETH have started to get a bit more momentum. And that's, a mixture of retail, but increasingly more kind of institutions. And if you actually look at the kind of trading ecosystem, you're starting to see more products evolve, which actually are more user-friendly from an institutional perspective.
The first round of tariffs went in back in 2018. We saw a movement away from China sourcing manufacturing in Southeast Asia, Vietnam, et cetera. We closed out 2022 with about 57% of our portfolio being trade with China. Today, it's 43%. And if we put more tariffs on China, we'll see that percentage go down as well. But again, how quickly can it happen? Some experts are saying by summertime, by third quarter, maybe fourth quarter. And what the key is going to be is our speed component. That's how we've done so well with North Asia cargo coming over Los Angeles and distributing across the country. If we have nonstop services like we've seen over the past couple of years start up in Southeast Asia, we can maintain our competitiveness.
Okay, so anecdotally, we hear that there are some companies that are trying to get ahead of this situation and that they're trying to ship as much stuff over here as humanly possible now in an effort to get ahead of a potential tariff. Do you actually see that physically?
Yeah, we do.
You do?
Yeah, we do. The volume has been elevated. This will be the second best year on record at the Port of Los Angeles from a volume perspective.
But how much do you think of that is just a function of hopefully a great economy versus folks sort of trying to overthink? I don't know if they're overthinking, but as it relates specifically to the tariff piece?
The underlying economy is strong and has been continuing longer than some would have thought. We're still buying. The manufacturing sector is doing pretty well overall. Then you've got three big geopolitical issues.
Right.
The dock workers negotiation back here on the East and Gulf Coast, which is set for expiry on Jan 15th.
Oh, boy.
You got the drought conditions in the Panama, which seems to have settled down, but you weren't having as many ships go through, nor were they loaded to capacity. And the ongoing security concerns with the Houthi rebels in the Red Sea. Suez Canal crossings are down 80 to 90%. Now, in the last quarter plus, you've seen retailers, footwear, clothiers front-loading inventories to average that cost down in the event we see a widespread tariff implementation, whether it's 10% on all $3 trillion of American imports or more targeted, like 60% on China, impacts on Mexico and Canada trade. That's it, and it's a repeat of what we saw in 2018.
What do you think the chances, by the way, on the East Coast that we have a strike?
I think it's pretty tough. It comes down to the discussion between the union and the employers on robotics or automation, and it's the most polarizing discussion we have in our industry today.
Can you do it? I would think that the future has to be robotics, no?
If we don't leave the workforce behind. There are models like in Hamburg, Germany, which have flourished. You grow capacity, top-line revenue, margin play, and you don't cut back the workforce to big-time levels.
Right.
If we can find a way to double capacity, which is what robotics can do, but not cut the workforce by 50, 80% at that individual facility, I think you got a conversation starting right there.
Right, but here's the question. Could you do this without the people? With a meaningful cut on the people, or no?
In my opinion, no, because you've got communities, you've got policymakers and politicians who have jumped on this discussion point, making sure that their communities are healthy from an economic standpoint.
By the way, I want the community to be healthy. No, I'm just asking from a pure, just technical perspective. You know, if Elon Musk was building a port, would the port have people? How many less people would be in that port?
From what we've seen so far, we've seen terminals automate, cut 80% of the workforce on that facility. And the results have been mixed on the West Coast thus far. Now, you can work longer hours. Your cost per unit of throughput becomes a little cheaper, but the level of service, because we're a gateway, going from ship to truck to train, is a little bit intricate. That institutional knowledge, I don't think can ever be put to the side.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And you know I come back with that video just to make you think.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
And make sure you're joining the Patrons. If you're not a part of the Patrons, make sure you're hitting the Cash App. And also, guys, make sure you go like and follow the TikTok. More videos to come. Now, I've been getting a lot of messages when it comes to these drones in New Jersey. And I'm going to touch on it a little bit. Now, guys, we know the next phase for the fourth industrial revolution are drones and driverless cars. And how does the NWO work? It's always negative energy. When it came to crypto, everything was negative. And the same thing is going to happen when it comes to these drones and driverless cars. They're going to use the negative press in order to move the fourth industrial revolution forward. And once you have the technology here, then you create the crisis to force the people to use it. We've seen this movie before. We've seen it too many times. If you have a drone the size of a car, an SUV, guys, we know that's an inside job. We know for a fact the United States has that technology. They're not going to show us, but they definitely have it. Remember, we give technology to China all the time. They don't give us technology. Now, we had Jeff Drew say the mothership. Guys, we're really in Star Wars. And we had the Pentagon says it's not true. And that technology does not come from the adversary. Just like I stated, guys, we're in a Marvel movie. And remember, the Crypto Teacher told you. Now, we had Jeff Seeker on Fox News says that Bitcoin will drag up Ethereum. And guys, we know that's a fact. Ethereum is always a certain percentage of Bitcoin when it comes to domination of the market. So as long as Bitcoin stays at this position, Ethereum will definitely follow. But when it comes to these spot ETFs, if spot ETFs had staking, guys, you know Ethereum right now will be going through the roof. Now we have McDermott from Goldman Sachs on crypto regulation is definitely coming. and his clients want those crypto spot ETFs. And we know Goldman Sachs has been invested in crypto from the beginning. And then we have the port strikes and tariffs. And these tariffs are definitely going to be majority ran by automation. And we have corporations know the tariffs are coming and they're getting prepared. The first quarter of the year is going to be very interesting. And I tell you all the time, every year, the first quarter, we take a dump. Now we have Janet Yellen, and we know she's about to ride off in the sun. First, she was with the Fed, now part of Treasury, which should have been a conflict of interest. But remember, she was a chess piece. She helped print all this money and then also flood the market with money. The bull market kept running because of Janet Yellen. And remember, the crypto teacher told you. And she speaks about tariffs. And Janet Yellen knows with the tariffs that Trump wants to put on, they're definitely going to pass down to the consumer. And remember, the crypto teacher told you. And we have CPI coming in hot. But the Fed is definitely going to be cutting rates because the bond market is clearly showing us. And today we had a 10-year auction, which was horrible because, guys, we know no one wants this long-term paper because the dollar, the world reserve currency, is on its last days. We're going to a level playing field. And that's the reason why Deutsche is definitely going to be cutting spending. But we know the NWO caused the problem, wait for the reaction, and run in with the solution, and that's universal basic income. And remember, the crypto teacher told you. And we have food inflation. And we know it's only a handful of companies that own all the food. That means that it's all corporate greed. And remember, the crypto teacher told you. Because he knows when it comes to the NWO, it's all planned out. Y'all have a wonderful day.
Well, I really don't want to make a forecast. Many countries, when they're faced with unilateral actions of that sort, look for ways to retaliate. And my guess would be that they would do that. We have in areas of concern where I've expressed repeatedly concerns with overcapacity that is developed in Chinese advanced manufacturing industries in clean energy, semiconductors, and the like. We think it reflects active, large subsidies that are flooding the world with exports and threaten to drive our firms out of business in areas that we think are critical to our own future. We've put in place tariffs. Now, they're strategic. They affected $18 billion worth of trade, certainly not all of our trade with China. And we did it to make sure that China's actions don't undermine our own plans to support these sectors. But broad-based tariffs, almost all economists agree that what they will do is hurt us by raising prices, possibly substantially, and making it more expensive for firms that need inputs from China to be able to acquire them, and harm our competitiveness of firms that rely on those imports. So we've taken a strategic approach, focusing narrowly, and a broad-based approach I have serious concerns with, as most economists do.
You are baffled at the market's reaction to the CPI.
Right.
Why?
Well, as you know, they're discounting about 99% now of a likely cut of a quarter. The economy's doing well. Powell keeps talking about this.
Said it was remarkable.
Financial conditions are wonderful. Look at what happened here on the floor today. Spreads are narrow. And I think one of the ironies, by the way, Scott, is they cut 50 basis points in September and then another 25. Rates have gone up. Not just from 1 year out. They went up on the 6 month and they went up on the 3 months. So financial conditions are very accommodative right now. A lot of private capital out there, private lending and so on. If I were at the table, I would say let's pause, but I'm not at the table.
Well, you wouldn't.
I'm an old guy, so I'm not there anymore.
So you wouldn't cut next week?
No, I wouldn't.
And what would you do after that?
Well, I'd wait and see what the data tells me. They're having trouble getting the 2%. We just saw the inflation numbers. They bipped up just a little bit. The employment numbers are quite strong. I don't see a reason to do it.
These numbers are coming in as people expected, but they're not great numbers. And you see a stalling in this path down to 2%. It is true that from a point of view of the real interest rate, which is the interest rates adjusted for inflation, which is what really does affect the economy, there's some restrictive policy here. However, there's really a situation here where the Fed may not really be restrictive enough given the numbers. So that they sort of don't want to surprise people, so that it's likely they're going to cut at this meeting. But on the other hand, I think there's going to be a lot of discussion going on about whether, in fact, that the numbers are not coming in as good as they'd like them to. They don't want to get stalled at 3% and not be on a path to the 2% target. And so the likelihood of them actually having to pause.
I think, well, first off, it's always hard to reduce the size of government. People always, they love all the spending. But the American public knows that inflation is tied to wasteful government spending. There's so many people engaged in this now around the country that say $36 trillion of debt is too much. $2 trillion deficits is too much. 53% increase in spending when we've only had a 2% increase in our population is too much. So there's going to be a lot of ideas. So I think I'm very excited that we're going to be able to figure a lot of things out. I've been having a lot of meetings with House members, friends of the House, and in the Senate, come up with ways to reduce the waste in government spending.
Do you think, Senator, that all the tax cuts that President Trump talked about, is that doable at the same time that we're trying to deport a lot of illegal immigrants that maybe even if it is just that have committed crimes? Or is it possible to do all things? It seems like a lot of balls in the air.
We're going to secure the border. We're going to make sure we're going to stop the flow of drugs, criminals, and terrorists in the country. Right? We're going to start enforcing our laws. And then in the meantime, we're going to figure out how to say what should the federal government be involved in, what shouldn't they, what should the states be doing. I mean, this is going to be a very good reset of what our federal government should be doing and what it shouldn't be doing. Americans are fed up. They're fed up with inflation. If you talk to people all around this country, they're sick and tired of everything costing more money. That's caused by wasteful government spending, not living within our means. You have to live within your means. Businesses have to. Your government's going to have to start doing the same thing. It's going to happen. It's all doable.
We'll talk food inflation, which is impacting some of the biggest restaurant chains in the U.S. Danilo Grillo is here, a senior research analyst at Bernstein. Want to start with Starbucks. Price of coffee, which broke a 47-year-old record just yesterday.
Going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
And so we'll import Chinese-based CBDC technology. So it's going to be CBDC in a box provided to you by the People's Bank of China.
But every stock, every bond, every currency, every commodity, every piece of art, every private business, every piece of real estate will eventually be a token on a blockchain, an entry on a ledger, permanent and immutable. We will have truth instead of trust, and we will save over $7 trillion a year. 6 to 8% of global GDP is wasted by the friction of the trust industry that's necessary when you have dual entry accounting. with triple entry accounting, which is what a blockchain is, we get rid of all of that friction. It's a beautiful future.
Like what you see in China and their social credit scoring systems, right? If we get identity wrong, it could be a tool to enslave humanity. And if we get it right, it could be a tool to liberate humanity. And as an American, I'm obviously rooting for the one that's on the side of freedom.
Bitcoin is an international asset. And also, I do believe the role of crypto is, it's digitizing gold.
I actually believe this technology is going to be very important. Look at it. We have been part of the huge revolution in investing through ETFs. We believe that ETFs will be changing the whole way we invest. Many people still use it as a means, people are investing it for indexing. No, the majority of people who are putting money in ETFs are active investors that are buying exposure. The entire bond market is being transformed as we talk right now. I believe the next generation for markets, the next generation for securities will be tokenization of securities. And if we could have that distributed ledger that we know every beneficial owner, every beneficial seller, we all have our code of who's buying, who's selling, instantaneous settlement. And think about it, it changes the whole ecosystem.
Chinese bank ICBC has been hit by a ransomware attack, and the U.S. Treasury market, as a result of that, has been disrupted. This, according to the Financial Times. We're getting at more right now with Bloomberg's Shonali Bassick. Shonali, what do we know?
Listen, we have the Financial Times now reporting that ICBC, one of China's largest banks here, was hit with a ransomware attack. And remember, they're a very significant intermediary in the Treasury market. The SIFMA has told its members that this has been part of the reason here that the system is kind of clogged up, if you will, during that auction that we saw a little bit before. The attack had prevented ICBC, according to the Financial Times, from settling Treasury trades on behalf of other market participants. A large executive at a major bank also telling the paper that such a large party on the fixed income clearing corp creates major concerns, potentially impacting the liquidity of Treasury markets. Now,
it was not just a poor auction. It was absolutely lousy, and when the dealers have to step in to save a treasury auction, that's a rare occurrence. And
Cryptoteacher and the New World Order book, plus the 3 Kids books. It's time to re-educate. Also, new to cryptos, Coinbase, Bitrue, Binance. Do not forget book links and crypto links are in the description. The stock channel, guys. Don't forget to go like, subscribe, spread everywhere. You have your Kobo, your chip stocks, your banking, your gaming. While everybody's sitting at home, get on stocks, the Seaver, the biotech stocks. And while everybody's at home wishing, they were still getting that free money. What are they doing? Drinking and smoking weed. Don't forget about those stocks, and you have a wonderful day. The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids books. I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Drama Team Save the Village. Part 2. King Joshua and Drama Team Save New York. COVID-33. Part 3. and Grandma Tam goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.